Hey there, I'm Alan Furstenberg,
And I'm Mark Tucker. Welcome to Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Good to have you back, Mark.
Thank you, Ellen. Top of the evening to you, I guess. I don't.
No, we had a good time with Craig last week, so that was good. And but it's always good for us to catch up with each other, just chat about what's going on, both, in work in general and our lives in general, and what's going on in the voice world.
Yeah, and something interesting is going on. It started August 1st. There is a hackathon for Alexa skills, and it's targeted to the 55 plus community. And I think we could talk about that today a little bit.
Oh, I'd love to. I know that's a really exciting one. I know folks were waiting since it was kind of teased at Alexa Live this year. And it's a really interesting hackathon. So the announcement about it just went up a couple of weeks ago at this point, and people are already jumping on board, and it's going to be continuing for till the end of September. So
yep, the end of September.
Let's take a look. And you're intimately involved in this.
Yeah, so I guess I probably need to start off with a disclaimer. I am a judge for this competition. So we will talk about it, but I want to make sure that it's clear that I can't tell you if you have a good idea or a bad idea. I can't really even give you any guidance or direction. There's a part of me that wants to be part of it and jump in, and I love the feels of hackathons and challenges like this. But as a judge, I kind of need to step back, and I'm really excited to see what everyone develops and puts together for this. But if you have any questions, we'll talk about it today, but definitely, don't take what I say at face value. Go look at the website, look at the rules, make sure you understand them carefully, look at all the resources, everything that's there. We'll talk a little bit more about this hackathon specifically, and what is it to be involved as a developer in one of those as well.
So let's start there. Actually, have you been involved? Have you been a participant in a hackathon before, or some of these themed challenges?
I have. I'm trying to remember if it's been. I think it might have been two for voice and then one for another one that I did. It was kind of more of a mobile device thing that I did. But so it's interesting because hackathons kind of could be used in multiple different ways. Sometimes hackathon you think of as you've got a weekend and it's 24 hours or 48 hours, and you and your team go in there and you're just churning the stuff out nonstop. There's food aplenty, and at the end of that time period, then you come out with whatever you've got. So I guess in that sense, this isn't a hackathon.
Well, that's why they call it.
They call it a challenge, a skills challenge.
Skills challenge.
And so this one has a little bit slow. So I've done that type of thing too. And so that's kind of interesting, because sometimes you even show up there and you don't necessarily have an idea, and you have to come up with an idea and then develop it and then do a presentation on it.
And sometimes even on, those weekend hackathons, you're coming in without knowing the technology. And part of the point of the hackathon is to teach you this brand new skill, throw you in on the deep end, let you play with it, give you the resources to help you understand it better, the technical, the people who are there to help you. Mm-hmm. And then to show off at the end that you've understood the technology that you're being taught. The first hackathon I was part of was for Google Glass. It was what they were calling the Glass Foundry event. And this was at a time that nobody had their hands on glass. And you had a room full of developers who literally 2 hours earlier had been handed a hardware device that we've never touched before.
Right.
And they're giving, a presentation on, here's what the user interface is going to feel like, and here's how the API works, and here are the sorts of things that we came up with, but what ideas do you have? And try them out. And, here's a wall full of engineers who will help you answer any questions that you have. And that was exciting. That was thrilling.
It is. And you kind of just have to embrace the idea that I know nothing going into this, and it's kind of scary and confusing, and I'm disoriented, I guess, to a certain extent. And that is part of the, I don't know, sometimes it's not fun. Sometimes that part of it's not fun, but it is kind of overall part of the fun of just going someplace, not knowing something, and leaving at the end of it knowing something, or knowing something better than most other people do, right?
And as a judge, and I've later been judges on some of these, it's been great. And also the person helping out, trying to help people understand the technology. It's been great seeing the questions that get asked and seeing the perspective sometimes that people take on how do you, this device that I've gotten so comfortable with, and these APIs that I've gotten so comfortable with, and being asked a question, you're like, oh, that's a good question. I have no idea how to do that.
I'd never thought of that,
but I guess it's possible.
Yeah.
And just seeing what people do. Yeah.
Yeah, that is definitely a fun part. And so I think there's still a certain degree with it being a challenge. You get a longer time frame, but there is still going to be a certain amount of, I hope there's people out there that's like, I've never written a voice application before, but and that's kind of what my first one was, is that I really hadn't done much with Alexa, and I really want to come out of this knowing how to make an app.
Yeah.
How do I do a voice app? And so just embrace that aspect. But there's lots of different, Amazon's been doing this for years. So you've got multimodal with APL, which you may have never, this might be the first time that you've done that, even though you might have created a voice app, or maybe you've created something on a different platform and this is your first time doing Alexa, or maybe this is your first time doing this certain feature or some other feature, and just trying to understand what all the features that are available to you, and kind of coming up with the idea. And you can do this as individual or as a team. So there's just lots of different things that.
Right. Or the fact that you've been used to doing games and now you're presented with looking at your user base in a whole different perspective, because we've got a kind of specific user base that this is oriented for.
Right. And so this would be a great opportunity for you to, talk to people that are in that age group, talk to friends, parents, grandparents, whatever situation you're in, talk to people and say, this is what my idea is, and is that something that would work for you or help you out, or you can see a need already and try to fill that need. Go ahead.
Right. And I think that's one of the great things about this particular challenge. And it kind of goes back to, the origin story of it in some ways really resonates with that, is that this is a very, very personal challenge, or it can be.
Right.
This is the sort of thing, the person behind it, Heidi Culberson, if you've ever seen, she's been doing presentations on developing audio applications for the over 55 crowd for years. And she got into it because she had, given an Alexa device to her mom and immediately understood exactly what the impact of it was. And she went and developed skills essentially for her and her mom, because it was that personal. It was, the understanding that I'm writing this for myself, and there are others who will benefit from this as well. And I think that's really kind of what this is trying to target, more than a lot of them do. This is a very personal one.
Yeah, and I think that also, is really a powerful thing that a lot of people are feeling. I've got somebody that's in that age range in my family that is very active, or I've got somebody that's not. And it's hard to watch different situations, or I feel that they're losing touch with the family or with others. There's
Right.
lots of different things, and we'll go through this. In fact, I'll go ahead and share the website, and we can walk through it. You'll see very specific topics that are covered in this challenge, and sometimes you think, well, the 55 plus community is a certain kind of stereotype, and it's not.
It's very much not. If you've ever seen Heidi's presentation, she really highlights the fact that while there are some things that are a little common about this group, there's also a huge level of diversity.
Right.
You can't really just assume that, it's a bunch of people going around with walkers, because it's not.
It's definitely not. And it's interesting because you'll notice right off the bat from the title, Aging and Engaging. So, there's that already kind of gives you some ideas, is that there's, this aging population. They're not all old. They're aging, and just different ways to engage them. So that's kind of like the first part. And then if you jump down here to the different categories, there's a category called Keep Moving, Stay Sharp, Be Supported, and Let's Connect. And you can even see just from those categories alone, you start getting some ideas of like, oh, this first one, keep moving, build a skill that empowers adults to live strong and active lives. And you're going to help them maintain, maybe they've already were active and maintain their strength and fitness and independence. And so it gives you some examples of types of skills that would fall into that category.
There's a lot of talk about brain exercises and, but not just that, but also, an example is helping a person go down memory lane so that they can, think about the high points either in their personal life or in the news that was going on that they experienced, or the music that they grew up with, if you think music that they grew up with, you're talking a huge range of, we're talking, maybe it's big band era, maybe it's early rock and roll. There's a lot of different music styles in there. So you can't just assume, oh, everyone's going to like rock and roll.
Oh, I was just about to say, you could do this and this and I can't.
Nope.
There's a part of me that wants to give my own ideas of what could happen in this area, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave that up to you this time. But I've got some ideas that in that area that I'm like, oh, this is really a cool idea. So, but the next area, be supportive. So this would be like, how do you help somebody keep track of their daily tasks or to do specific activities? So this is about, how do you help them? How can the assistant be an assistant and help in different situations?
Mm-hmm. And I think that also ties into the next one about, let's connect. What does it mean to use your voice to connect with your family? As the example gives, how do you get family news? It's easy to get the national news, but how do I get what's going on in my family, and how can I hear about that? How can I use it to, if I'm feeling lonely, just be able to talk and connect with relatives? Maybe they've got an Alexa of their own. So, maybe we're talking something that needs to pair up in some way or share a database in some way. Friends night out, a joint activity. What does it mean to play games if both of you are remote? Or what does it mean to play games by voice if you're both together?
Yep, lots of good questions. So just from those categories, you start to see, wow, there's lots of different things that maybe you at first thinking about this, you would think, oh, I don't really have an idea. But then you start looking at those categories and you're like, oh, I could see how this would fit, or I could do this or different things like that. So that's really what has me excited about, is just these different categories and the different things that creators are going to come up with for this challenge. I'm really excited about judging what different people come up with on this. So, what do you need to submit? In the end, you need to submit a 3-minute video, and you need to submit your skill to the skill store and have proof that you've submitted it by the deadline. So this is all covered in the official rules. So definitely follow on with those. So, but what are the prizes?
Right, and this is the part that, of course, people jump to.
Yeah. This is kind of like that extra motivation, or maybe the initial motivation, and then you get into it and you find other things that you love about it.
Right. And, one of the things that I think is neat about prizes, in particular cash prizes, is some of them are, the grand prize is a decent chunk. But even the smaller prizes are enough of an incentive to get people to look at it, to aim for these kinds of prizes. Yeah. And maybe they'll help you launch this skill as a full product. Maybe this is enough to help get you started down this path. We know, for example, Ilarna Che, who's been on the show a couple of times, she launched her company based on contests like this. So it's very much a possibility that this is a possible road towards starting a new major releasable product with a little bit of seed money to do so.
Yeah, exactly. And there's definitely an audience for this age group and these types of skills. So I think there's lots of different motivators. The prize itself could be a motivator. The topic or the categories that we're covering and how they can help people is a motivator. Where things will go after the challenge is a motivator. So there's lots of different, learning something new is a motivator. There's lots of different motivators of why you might want to be part of this challenge. And so I guess, taking a moment here in the middle to talk about this is really hoping that if you're on the fence, like, should I do this or not, or haven't done this type of thing before, that you'll really consider doing it. I think it's a worthwhile opportunity and a great experience overall.
Well, definitely. And I think the other thing to remember on that certainly is you've got nothing to lose. There's no entry fee for this. It's really some of your time, and you'll learn something from it.
Yep.
So, there's no downside to this, really.
Yeah, and there's ways to test your skill without having a device. So that even specifically says in the rules, you don't have to have a device to do this. So my first hackathon, I didn't have a device either. I just used the tools and created it. It didn't have a UI or anything, but it was all voice. But I didn't have a device, and I didn't actually get the device until after I had submitted my skill. So let's talk about the prizes. In total, there are 10 winners, 10 prizes. So there is an overall best grand prize winner, and there will be 4 runners up. And so that's the cash prize of $15,000 for the grand and 5 each for each of the runners up. Then you'll notice that there are different categories. Those categories that we talked about, there is going to be a winner in each of those categories. So, best keep moving skill, best stay sharp, best be supportive, best let's connect. And then there's one that is specific. It's a bonus prize that if you incorporate APL and have the best multimodal screen, so merging the voice experience and the visual experience, then you could get a prize just for that. And just to, so there's lots of different ways that you can win.
Now, I just want to, does it actually say it has to be APL?
I'm pretty sure that it does, but if you have any questions,
check
go look
the
at the rules. And it will tell you specifically what's included and what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. Now you might ask, but I'm not a developer. I can't do this. What's going on? My understanding is the only restriction that you can't do is there's something called Alexa blueprints that allow you to, it's kind of more like hobby or beginning, where you'd fill in some blanks and it would generate a skill. So they're looking for somebody to go beyond that basic level of blueprints, but that doesn't mean that you have to be a developer to do it.
No.
There are tools like VoiceFlow that allow you to kind of draw out, and in the end, it has to be something that you could deploy to the skills store, but it's not saying exactly what technology. Amazon's going to talk about the Alexa Skills Kit, which is in some ways the APIs that they make available to developers, but there's also like an SDK called the Alexa Skills Kit for SDK. You can develop your skill using that. You can develop your skill, and usually that's in Node.js. You could use Node.js and use a tool, a framework like Jovo if you want. There's no reason why you can't do that. You could, if you don't do Node or JavaScript and you're more of a C# or a Java or Python, look around. Chances are you're going to be able to find a framework that takes the language that you're most familiar with, and it'll let you create Alexa skills using that. So the documentations and resources are going to point you towards Alexa Skills Kit, but that's not necessarily a requirement to enter. And you can use a no-code tool to do this as well.
Now, the other thing is that, as I understand it, teams are also allowed to enter.
Yep, correct? You can be an individual or you can be a team.
So if you're not a developer and you want to, team up with a developer, if you've got a great idea and you kind of know what the flow needs to look like and what it sounds like, but you don't know how to do it, you could team up with a developer, and the two of you can design and develop something. So that's perfectly reasonable as well.
Yeah, like our friends Katie and John. Sometimes the most powerful teams are small teams of 2 or 3, where somebody's more technical, somebody's more content. But this is where you pull in somebody who might be good at acting or writing.
Writing those dialogues
or dialogue or conversations. You can pull them in. Somebody that's good at writing, creating content. Even like more on like the project management. Okay, let's stay on task, everybody. The next thing that we're going to focus on is this, or interviewing people that are in that age range and getting ideas or feedback and like testing and iterating. There's lots of different skill sets.
Or if you've got something that requires a lot of content, you need to organize 1,000 pieces of music from the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Somebody's got to organize that content, or so there's lots of roles for lots of different people in this sort of thing.
Yeah, and just general guidelines that were talked about at Alexa Live as far as retention and engagement with skills. One of them they talked about using APL. Another one they talked about finding different ways to engage. That could be something like reminders. It could be using the different things that are available. Like one of the things they mentioned recently was send a phone. Make sure that you understand what are all the features that are available in the tool set, and figure out how best to incorporate them.
Yep.
And you can go down and find, like here's the list of judges, and I'll go back to the judges in just a second, but here's the judging criteria.
You scrolled past the judges pretty quickly there.
I did, but because I was wanting to finish my thought that this is the guidelines around the judging criteria, the different things that the judges are going to be looking for. So make sure that you clearly understand what's being said here, and try to adapt what you're saying, what you're doing to what's being said here.
And I think these three points, this judging criteria, is useful for almost any skill that gets developed. The quality, how good is this? It includes, is it unique? Is it creative? How relevant is it to the target audience?
Yep.
How easy is it to use, especially for this kind of audience? You want to make sure that you've created a lot of training phrases, because people can ask things in different ways. You want to make sure that the training phrases are ones that someone in these age groups are likely to use. You might want to make sure that you've tested it with things like, what happens if the user pauses or is more hesitant or is speaking slower or might have a slightly different accent, because these are all possibilities from this age range.
And the other thing that they talked a lot about on Alexa Live is that skills that regularly have new content are more engaging and people come back and use them more. So that's something else to keep in mind. If it's, I know like one of the first skills that I created was a simple fact skill of some sort. I don't even remember what the topic was, but I had 20 random facts that you could ask questions or like, give me a new fact, and it would give you a new fact. And those are only useful to a certain, to a certain level. So figure out how you can get new content in. What's the process for refreshing content in the system, and give users a reason to come back because they're engaged, they're excited, because they're getting new content, whatever. So think about those aspects.
I think the second point as well touches really addresses some of the things that I think developers are most interested in. It is saying, what are the things available in Alexa that we as developers take advantage of, and are you taking advantage of them?
Right.
And it also talks about the design principles that, your designers should be well versed in.
Yep. And there's new documentation and additional guidelines. There's guidelines for how do you create a skill. There's guidelines for how do you use APL. So look at those design guidelines as well on Alexa and make sure you understand them.
Yep. And again, I think the final point is obvious and important. It seems obvious, but I think it's also easy to kind of forget, is that, if somebody's actually using this, how do they engage with it? How does it entertain with? How free of bugs is it? How does does it not glitch? Because if it glitches, it's going to be frustrating to use. How does it handle people who are there for the first time or there for their 100th time, which is something we talk about endlessly. And I would say, we've talked about many of these concepts, and I hope, introduced folks to libraries that can help with this. And I hope people take advantage of those libraries.
Yeah, like we talked about, there was a video series I did on APL. There's good resources on Amazon that talk about APL, but if you want another perspective, then definitely look at that video series and check out APL Ninja. Great resource for creating APL.
Yep. And we just did, things about Badgerific and some of the Jovo utility tools that you have that help people, count how many times they've done things, or how often they've used a resource, or have they used?
Like streaks and badges and achievements. That's a way to engage people.
Right. These are, and definitely it's something that helps you determine, has this user been here before? How many times have they been here before? And how do we work differently?
Yeah.
How do we really tailor it to their specific needs?
Yeah. So you're personalizing it to not, not just one size fits all, but personalizing it that, this person's used it frequently, or it's been 2 months since they've used it, or it's been, so there's different things that you can do. And we've talked about those, and, we've got lots of different episodes.
Got 100 episodes or so that may take you a bit to review, but hopefully you're pretty caught up.
Yeah. So before we go on to some additional resources, I just want to do a shout out to this list of judges. Some of these people are brand new. I have not met them, but some of them I've been friends with and like for years. So these are top-notch judges. I'm excited to be counted among them. And we've got lots of diversity. We've got some people that are coming from Amazon, but we've got people that are coming from other industries that are specific to the things that we're talking about. So just a great group of judges, and I'm excited to see what you're doing, but also to work with them. The last part.
Some of these are something I love. Some of these titles are fantastic. Scroll down a little bit more. Seeing people at senior living communities, the Geron technologist. That's a great title.
That is awesome. Yeah.
I think the one other thing to make sure we point out is the deadline for this is September 26th. So you've got, not quite 2 months at this point, but almost. So make sure you don't miss the deadline.
It looks like we got 49 participants that have already signed up.
That's and it actually tells us we have 53 days, at least as of when we're recording this, and then it'll be a little bit less by the time it finally airs.
Yep.
So make sure you keep your eye on that deadline. The other fun thing, though, is that the winners are going to be announced at the Voice Summit.
Yes.
We'll be talking more about the Voice Summit.
Yes, we definitely will be, and we plan to be doing an episode of Two Voice Devs live at the summit. And you've got a presentation you're doing, and I've got an additional presentation I'm doing. So we've got lots of things going on, and it occurs to me, I would love to have some of these winners on Two Voice Devs just to talk about their experience after the fact about the hackathon. And
I think that would be fantastic. Yeah, I hope we can do so.
That would be excited. So an unofficial invitation to the winners to join us in the future on Two Voice Devs. The last thing I want to point out is this point here at the top where it's talking about the rules, any updates or discussions that you can have. You can ask questions. So everything's set up here on DevPost. I've used DevPost before on some of the challenges I've been in. It's a good site, but there's this resources section. So make sure that you check it out. It's going to talk about some different tools, like even how do you create a developer account? Where can you go see some documentation and some webinars? So there's lots of different places to get you started. Hopefully you'll take advantage of these resources. Plus, Heidi herself is going to be with Jeff Blankenberg. So two of the judges on August 23rd are going to be talking about this on the Amazon Alexa office hours. So that's another place where you could go and kind of get some insider information as much as they can share, or just kind of get perspectives of two of the people that are going to be judging this.
Right. I think one of the great things that I'm looking forward to about that one is Heidi really is a wealth of knowledge about.
Oh, she is.
About how to design things for this group, and I'm really looking forward to getting more of her insights from that. And actually, speaking of the Voice Summit, I first met Heidi at the Voice Summit in Newark in, I guess it was 2019. It was an absolutely packed room, and she looked a little bit overwhelmed by the number of people that were trying to cram themselves into this room. But she did a fantastic job at helping us understand that this is a community that many of whom are comfortable with technology. They're not afraid of it, but they have challenges with it. It's not immediately obvious. And sometimes that means somebody else is going to need to help them set it up.
Yep.
So there's a lot of things to think about when you're thinking about developing for this group. And I'm hoping Heidi will give a few hints at her office hours.
Yeah, I hope so too. A couple of parting thoughts that I've got, and then I'll turn it over for if you've got some additional things to say on this, Alan, before we close. But there are APIs that you can use to plug into lots of different things. So consider that as an option. So maybe your skill isn't based on content that you generate, but maybe it's content coming from someplace. For example, I think of John and Katie again, who did a tour of an art museum using APIs that were available for the art museum. So that could be another team member in a way, is finding an API that covers some of the things that you want. And it could be a challenge on its own, integrating APIs. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is that even though you may not be creating a game, maybe you are. Maybe one of these things has a dual purpose. It's a game that tests memory or whatever, the different examples that they gave. But just because it's not a game doesn't mean that you can't include gamification things in it. So fun, achievements or badges, like we said. But just think about some of the things that make a good game, and play some of the games that are already available for Alexa, and see what they do for APL, see what they do for engagement and content, see what some of the things that they do, and that might give you some ideas on what you can do.
I think the API one is particularly good, and maybe this is something that we should cover in the near future, is talk about where to look for APIs and where they can be. I know a lot of communities, for example, have APIs that give just basic civic information, like what are the hours of town hall and what are the days of garbage collection, and stuff like that. And maybe those are things that are useful to you. Google has an API for its calendar, and lots of places put menus on calendars, or will put activities on calendars. And maybe if you've got a calendar there that you found, you want to provide a good voice interface to that calendar for that community. So maybe you're developing a skill for a very, very narrow community, but it's incredibly powerful for that community. So you don't need to create the biggest, grandest tool of all time. You can tailor it fairly narrowly. I mean, like we talked about with Craig last week, a lot of what drove his mouse guest skill was the fact that he discovered an API that provided this wealth of information. And he wanted to build something for the community of people that could use it. And I think anybody who, finds the resources for the aging and engaging group, fine, even if it's a small group, if it's one small community, that's perfect, because you're helping that community.
So like we say at the end of every episode, please contact us, whether it be in the comments or on social media, whether it be LinkedIn or Twitter, and just ask your questions and get involved. I think this is a really great opportunity to join this challenge, and I would strongly consider you and encourage you, I guess, to take a look at it and try it out. I think it's going to be a great opportunity.
No, I definitely agree. I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what folks do. I mean, one of the things I hope at the summit is that we don't just see the winners. Looking forward to seeing the winners, but just what everyone is doing and how everyone is thinking about this, and the sorts of tools that we're bringing to these communities. And as you said earlier, I really hope that we can get some people to discuss what you did and how you did it on another episode of Two Voice Devs.
Two Voice Devs. Take care, Alan.
Take care, Mark. Have a great week.
You too.